So now you moved from a typical Web2 world as a product manager and trying to build a Web3 product. How different has this journey been from the Web2 world to the Web3 world?
Essentially, when you launch in Web3, you have two products. One is your product,
Correct,
or platform or whatever. The other product is your token. And once you start viewing it from that lens, then it starts to get the necessary amount of focus and time and thought behind how it is constructed. And I think that's a wonderful way of looking at things in Web3.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode on Web3Verse by Foundership. This is a new series of podcasts on everything about you want to know about Web3, crypto, DeFi, blockchain, NFTs, and marketplace. At Foundership, we are a startup execution platform where we help idea to seed stage and seed to growth stage with coaching, capital, and community. We're very excited today to have Mayur Relekar from Arcana Network, who is a founder CEO. And he's building an amazing layer one platform to help build Ethereum-based apps with privacy and storage configurations and privileges right out of the box for all dApps that are getting built out on Web 3.0. So super excited to have him. Very interesting and exciting insights that we will expect to extract out of Arcana, because they are doing something very exciting in the cryptography space, where I'm a spy freak myself, watch a lot of spy movies. So very excited to know what they're doing, and I would love to bring those insights to all the listeners today. So thank you, Mayur. Thanks for joining in today and taking time to be on Web3Verse.
No, thank you, Bimlesh, for even having me here. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I'll share whatever I can about what we are doing.
Fantastic. So let's start with talk a little bit about yourself, your background. How did you, think about Arcana? How did that whole thing get started? So then we'll take it off from there.
Sure. I'm actually like a product manager by trade, and what that basically means is I love working at like the confluence of design, tech, and business. And it's something all three of them have like equally enamored me right from the beginning. And this was like the whole Arcana journey actually started in 2017 when I actually discovered like blockchains and Bitcoin and things like that. And since then my head was completely turned. I knew for somewhere innately in me that there was no going back from here. This is going to be what I'm going to be working towards for the rest of my life, pretty much. And in 2019, I actually took the leap of actually doing something in this space. I founded this company called Newfang, where we wanted to build decentralized storage. And thanks to some of the early work that we did back in 2018, we were able to like very quickly go to market with an MVP. And that's when we realized that at least back then, nobody cared about decentralized storage. And the thing with that is that storage is essentially commodity. And with any sort of commoditized market, the only thing that a consumer cares about is the robustness of the solution or service and the price of the service. And we were like a small member, nobody team from Bangalore. And on both aspects, we really couldn't compete with the incumbents in the Web3 space and obviously in the Web2 space. And that was primarily because, and why do I say Web2 is because back then everyone was very happy to basically centralize storage because of all the free credits people were getting. But so what we did next is that we built out all this tech and we were wondering what we should do next. And so we decided to kind of dog food that tech and build like a product that we hoped other people would build with Newfang back then. And so we built a product called Skizzle. It's basically a browser extension that allows you to send end-to-end encrypted attachments right in your email. So in your standard email send flow, where you hit compose, type out an email, hit attach and send, in that same flow without disrupting it at all, you could now send end-to-end encrypted attachments. And it was in the process of actually doing that we went fairly deep into areas of applied cryptography and started to really glean um, the possibilities of what you could do with applied cryptography. And all of this was fairly new back in 2019, 2020, mainly because of, like till some time back, computers weren't even capable of doing some of this cryptography that it can do today. So it was definitely a novel space. Like it still is, and lots of new exciting stuff were getting built, were in research, etc., etc. So that's when we decided to kind of go back to the platform play and almost platformatize everything that we had done for Skizzle, and that's when we launched Arcana.
Fantastic. So if you were to help listeners understand what does Arcana do, with a few examples, why don't you go ahead and share that?
Sure. We essentially are our mission is to help devs build more secure, privacy-preserving apps, and we concentrate primarily on the data layer that exists of almost for any app. This data layer could essentially be between two users, or between a user and say a machine or a server. And so the simplest example of where you employ and use a data layer that I'm sure almost anyone would be able to connect to is something like, say, Dropbox or Google Drive, right? So there is a very clear data layer between the file you want to upload and where it gets stored, and then when someone kind of retrieves it, they again use the data layer. So we want to bring security and privacy to this aspect. We don't really concentrate on too much else, like stuff around compute and things there. We don't look at it, at least not for now. And we basically want to help apps become end-to-end encrypted. I'll put more power into the hands of the users, so that they can decide who gets access to the data, and make sure that no third party has illicit or illegitimate or even unethical access to any of the user data that someone ends up sharing on any platform.
Fantastic. So if I've understood it right, so if I'm an app developer and then I need to think of data storage, security, and privacy, all that I need to do is integrate your SDK or your toolkit into my development stack, and that part is taken care by Arcana.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Let's just say you want to build decentralized Dropbox, and all you need to do is you have your business model, you have your business logic with your users. We are not normative about any of that stuff. You can go ahead and do whatever you want to. You just integrate the Arcana SDKs, and what then that allows you is that for your users to encrypt files at their source, at the client within their browser itself. And so every file is encrypted before it even hits the network and hits the wire, basically. And then your users are rest assured that no one else has access. You don't have access. Arcana doesn't have access. Google, Amazon, Polygon, whoever in between, nobody has access, right? So and they get to choose who gets to have access. And we also further kind of bring privacy in the fact that every sort of action that user performs is while logged to the Arcana blockchain for auditability purposes. But the thing is that these are all with pseudonymous identifiers. We don't store any public information about the file like no file names, no metadata, nothing.
Okay, amazing. So this is amazing. So so recently we got to see that OpenSea itself was hacked, right? So would you say that Arcana would be a good fit for OpenSea to build that type of an layer?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a world of sense. Um, so let's take the use case of NFTs and NFT marketplaces, right? So what happens today is that you go to OpenSea, you have a JPEG. Let's say you're a photographer, you have a JPEG, and you go upload this JPEG, you mint an NFT, and you want to now trade this NFT, list it for sale, and things like that. The NFT that you mint sits in your wallet, and that is secured by the chain that the wallet is on. So let's say you are using OpenSea on Polygon or OpenSea on Ethereum, and the NFT is extremely secure because of the underlying consensus mechanism and proof of stake or proof of work. And it would take a lot of money for someone to kind of so-called hack these systems. But the JPEG that you uploaded is unencrypted, sitting probably somewhere on IPFS, because essentially OpenSea uses like IPFS or Filecoin or Arweave, I think it's one of these to store. And anyone who basically understands anything about blockchains can basically have access to the underlying asset. And this while it's fine for perhaps bored apes and CryptoPunks and things like that, it's going to be wholly undesirable for a whole new class of NFTs that are going to get minted in the future. We are talking about documents, maybe audio, video, any sort of media, NFTs in games and things like that. Having access to the underlying asset may not be wholly desirable, right? So let's take the example of some music NFTs. Maybe an artist wants to gate access to the NFT and the underlying asset essentially for a certain period of time, and wants to let in only certain people. Right now, OpenSea would have to do something extremely custom and block people on the basis of say URLs and things like that. But these would be just cursory blockages. If someone wanted access, they could get access. But if they were to use Arcana, this now ensures that the underlying asset is firstly encrypted at source. So no one has access to it except for the owner of the asset, which in this case is the owner of the NFT. And now that person gets to decide who gets access. And now you could start building a whole bunch of different sort of business models, use cases on top, where you say, give access to only person with this address, or give access to anyone who holds another token, or you could start token gating things. You could start basically limiting access. You could do conditional access, time-based access, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah. Fantastic. Amazing. So now you moved from a typical Web2 world as a product manager and trying to build a Web3 product. How different was this journey of thinking of a problem, solving for the problem, building out a product, rolling out the product, trying to find your early adopters? How different has this journey been from the Web2 world to the Web3 world?
I mean, largely speaking, this is exactly what I was doing in my previous place of work also, in the sense that for me, being product owner at a services company meant that we were constantly churning out products for obviously other people, but we were taking products right from idea to market, and this required me to essentially look at all of the necessary metrics for any product to be able to hit market and be successful, at least in some capacity. So everything that required for a product in the life cycle were basically going 0 to 1 were things that I've done as a product manager. And I've also been the two-time founder in the past, but both of those products are failures. So I've learned quite a bit about what not to do, and that's been helpful. But the big change was obviously in between Web 2 and Web 3 is the sheer rate of innovation. Right? Keeping up with the possibilities is very, very tough. Um, what you know today is almost irrelevant in a couple of weeks or months from now. And the rate at which, and it's a very adversarial sort of environment, right? Because there is so much opportunity for everything from arbitrage to just probably just exploiting things for the sake of exploiting and making things more stronger. Any sort of burgeoning technology, you probably have this, but especially so in the blockchain space, because everything has value associated. NFTs have value associated with it. Almost every every sort of like platform has a token, and then consequently, there is value associated with that as well. And this is value that almost anyone has access to. So it makes it that much more enticing for it to for people to kind of probably take a shot at something. So that is something that I'm probably still coming to terms with, and it's hard to keep focus in this space, and because there's so many opportunities to be able to do all sorts of things. But yeah, I think that's one of the key differences that I've found.
Fantastic. How much of those product management principles, prioritization, your backlog, assessment, and the sprint development models for teams, which are typically now the standard in Web 2, how much of those are applicable in the Web 3 world?
I keep saying this. We are essentially like a Web 2 company masquerading as a Web 3 company, because we just believe in the exact same fundamentals, right? You still need to have a useful product. You still need to, your primary like North Star metric eventually has to be like, we are a platform, so it comes down to things like ARR and just general revenue, and translating revenue into like value in the underlying asset of the token in our case. And that's literally what we care about, and which is why we've been building for the past 3 years. We built through one bear market. We'll seemingly be building through another bear market before our token sees the light of day. And but that's completely fine. We are in no hurry. We are obviously building something that's is if built well can be very useful, but building it well also requires us to be extremely deliberate. We can't rush things like security of people's data and things like that. So for us the exact same, the standard principles of like getting a product and taking it to market, finding product market fit, ensuring that we have good revenues that translate into value accrual in the token. These are the things that we honestly just care about. Everything else is just hype and noise.
Got it. Fantastic. So I want to touch upon two things now, right? So one is on the product market fit journey, and second is on, your current design of your, value capture through your tokens and that life cycle. So first, let's talk a little bit about product market fit and user acquisition. So as you say, your product is still under development. How are you finding your early adopters? How are you finding builders to trust you right now to build their apps and try out your product, because you yourself have not yet released out your platform, right? So talk to us a little bit about that phase.
Yeah, so one of the beautiful aspects is that because this is like burgeoning technology, there are lots of very like-minded people who come together in this space, and almost everyone wants each other to like win, right, and do well. and thankfully, we do have our own set of like supporters and people who like rooting for us. So uh, this is what I guess people call community,
Yeah.
and um, we're extremely grateful to have such people around us who offer up their help voluntarily without us even reaching out. And we, of course, reach out to people, and there are extremely nice constructs that exist in Web3 that don't really exist in Web2 or are not as prevalent. For example, like bug bounties are like a huge thing, right? In Web3, I mean, there are companies building whole business models around just the concept of bounties, right? And the reason why this exists is because there are people, large hordes of them, who like come together and actually do all of these sorts of things. And obviously, all of this is incentive driven, which is whereas the Web2 world almost relies on like altruism to kind of get all of this stuff done. And so we can be rest assured that at some level we are going to get a lot of feedback. We've been getting it from like smaller pockets of people. But as we start to release more and more stuff, as we kind of have our own set of bounties and things like that, we're going to have people come and tell us this doesn't work, this could be improved, and things like that. We have released an alpha in the past. We did a small bug bounty back then, and we got great feedback from people, and they were helped us fix a lot of issues. And we were able to do so for a fraction of the cost of actually going to like a large audit enterprise and getting things done. So so far, this is what we've been able to do, and this is, I think, largely facilitated by the fact that there is like this one community that is constantly looking for opportunity to kind of not only make some money but also to kind of help this space just grow, improve, and things like that.
Fantastic. Web3 contribution is very strongly driven by the open source culture, right? And how much of Arcana is open source? How much of it is proprietary? When you do bug bounty, how does some of the, in case you have some proprietary code combined with the open source code, so how does that operationally actually work when somebody is trying to say that, hey, I'm willing to pick up this bug and looking forward to get some incentivized on it?
Yeah, so I can tell you that as of today, all of Arcana's code is still closed source. But this is just a matter of time. And when I say matter of time, I mean like perhaps a few weeks. Like later this month, we release Arcana beta testnet. And alongside that, we will also open source all of our code. And this will then allow for two very, very important things. Number one is obviously transparency in the way we do things. This is like a base requirement for almost a lot of like audit firms who we will reach out to, professional audit firms who will take a look at our code. They need access to that code and be able to kind of put it out there in the market that we've tested Arcana. These are the issues we found, and it allows us to fix them, and it allows for people to know if they can trust what we are doing or not. So the transparency aspect is obviously super important. Secondly, and it's something that is more long term in my view, is contribution from the community itself. We want to obviously give people an opportunity to look at what we're doing and come up with ways to improve it in exchange for some sort of obviously incentivization. This, I think, is like probably like if done well, can be like the model that defines like the future of the way we work, and where there's tons of opportunities for people to kind of do things in tech, and they just go in, find like small projects, little issues, small pieces of code that they can help improve, fix, and you get obviously paid off for it. And this is what we are definitely going to do, and this is because of our eventual plans to become public goods. Right now, we feel like the right way to go about this is to have a company that bootstraps everything from like the base product to even some degree of growth before we actually transition into like a public goods that's largely driven by community led governance and community led innovation.
Got it. Fantastic. Thinking of I think from a mindset point of view itself, you can't get into Web3 without an open source mindset, and trying to take a closed source into an open source, it's also a huge step. With a fundamental belief that tomorrow there can be an alt Arcana spinning off, with a few minor changes, to your code, and someone else setting up another company. Fantastic.
There are safeguards that people can put in place. Most famously, it's what Uniswap did. There obviously will probably be others, and there's precedence for this, but I think the most popular version of this is what Uniswap did, where basically they put out their code, made completely open source, but the license dictated that for a period of, I think they said 3 years, but for a certain period of time, you could not fork their code without their permission.
Okay.
So that allowed them like this enough of a time to kind of,
Correct.
Capture the market, but still induce confidence in people using Uniswap by virtue of the fact that they were completely transparent about their code, but they're also preserving their innovation without necessarily going down the route of like intellectual property and closed sourcing things like that.
Fantastic. Talk a little bit about how we are envisaging the tokenomics around your own token XAR, and we'll take it forward from there.
Yeah, this is still in the works. We've obviously been doing a lot of work on this. I have a very dear friend who loves to say this, and I've now come around to seeing things in this light, where essentially when you launch in Web3, you have two products. One is your product,
correct,
or platform or whatever. The other product is your token. And once you start viewing it from that lens, then it starts to get the necessary amount of focus and time and thought behind how it is constructed. And I think that's a wonderful way of looking at things in Web3, especially if you have a token. And we've been the same. We are again extremely deliberate with our token. There are some models that are fairly well proven, but it's so young, right? In this entire space, and people are doing like all sort of like fancy economics behind the scenes, and it's some of it is truly wonderful, and it like makes you think, and some of it is like straight up like this looks like a Ponzi. And so we obviously, because we have this extremely large long-term vision of this being public goods, and anything that's public goods needs to have like self-sustenance, right? Outside of altruism by people in form of like donations and things like that. That's not obviously the route that we want to go. We want to kind of ensure that when we become public goods, we want to be able to hand over a very healthy treasury to the community and the DAO that will essentially govern the Arcana protocol. So it's very important to kind of lay the right foundations. And again, for us, it's simple. Like the most fundamental thing that anyone needs to look at is how does revenue essentially drive value accrual into the token. Because if your token's value accrual is anything outside of like clear like usage and adoption, then you have something funky going on, in my opinion. It has to be about like for every new user you bring on board and generate value for, that has to reflect almost one-to-one, if not one-to-n, in value accrual in the token. If you do that and you do that well, then the rest is, almost financial modeling, which can be kind of like figured out. There is a science to that. But this is the part that requires like deep thinking, and you need to really figure this out, right? Like, for example, let's look at Polygon, right? How does Polygon accrue value in a token? What's like fundamental to it? Obviously, people are like, oh, this is a great project, so we want to buy the token. I think it's severely undervalued. That's all the speculative side. So we'll keep it aside. Fundamentally speaking, you have to have a token that people want to buy, right? So outside of, if you keep speculation aside, why would anyone want to buy the Matic token? And that is, they want to buy the Matic token because people want to build apps and use apps on Matic. And why do they want to do that? Is basically because Matic have built out, the Polygon team have built out such a great sort of platform where, they've taken care of things like throughput while ensuring certain degree of security and things like that. So now you have this world computer that is able to do all of this compute, and there are so many other things associated with it that you can now achieve that, which were probably unavailable on something like, say, Ethereum. And now people want to build apps and use apps, and to build apps and use apps, you need Matic tokens. So which is why they're going to market and buying Matic at market price to be able to expend it, right? And now they have obviously grown at like at this insane rate of people building and using dApps on Matic, and that has sort of led them to go from, I remember just last year they were or early last year or maybe late 2020s, they were like a top 100 project, and they became a top 50 project. Now they're well and truly established as like top one of the top 20, top 15 projects, and everyone will tell you they're severely undervalued because I think usage on Polygon is probably larger than anything else. So this is how you actually do it, right? You build something super useful that everyone wants to use, like all the biggest Web2 guys in the world want to use it, and they're going to get users who are going to expend Matic tokens. And how do they get Matic tokens? They obviously need to go to like public markets and buy it, which obviously puts upward price pressure on any sort of token because of the demand for the token. And that's how you kind of generate like value accrual. There are obviously many more nuanced things involved, but this is the base.
Fantastic. Cool. So coming towards the final part of this talk today, we'll touch a little bit on the team. So talk to us about how you put your team together. Where are they based? At what stage of growth are you in right now? What's your hiring plan? What are your hiring challenges in Web3?
Just to answer the last part, hiring challenges are the same. They are no different. If anything, it's harder because there's so much hype around Web3, and with all due respect to everyone, I think even like some average people, because of the fact that there's so few like specialized devs for the blockchain space, like even average developers end up like being extremely overpriced. Easy to say this as a founder, but if I was a dev, I'd probably set those sort of numbers for myself as well. So we are currently like a team of over 30 people, which cuts across full-time employees and consultants, and we have like now fully set teams. Like we have a team of 4 people working on the blockchain side of things. We have a team of 3 people working on storage aspects. We have 5 people now on our cryptography team, and we have a team of designers. Front-end team is all set up. So we're basically looking at all of these different teams, and we're making sure that everyone is self-sustaining and is able to kind of build things out. themselves within their little pockets. We obviously have engineering managers and tech leads and project managers and all of those sorts of things. And majority of our team is from India. I would say at least 2/3 are. The rest of them are spread out different parts of the world. Like we have people from Scotland, Canada, Italy, etc., etc.
Fantastic. And you pay all of them in crypto? You pay them on fiat?
Yeah, so it's for some people it's all fiat primarily because I mean, obviously, in India, paying in crypto is almost like meaningless in a lot of senses. You're already paying huge income tax, then you have to pay tax on this. Yeah, but to definitely people abroad, those who wish to get paid in crypto, we absolutely kind of afford them that opportunity, and it's up to them.
God, fantastic. Coming towards the other topic on fundraise, right? So, talk to us a little bit about your journey of fundraise. What were some of your experiences and lessons learned in this journey? As we all know, there are a lot of traditional Web2 investors who look at a different evaluation process and evaluation method, right, of a startup. And Web3 native investors are very different. They have their parameters are also different. Their valuation methods also different. So, what was your experiences? If you were to share some takeaways for listeners, for young builders who are in the middle of their fundraise, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, in terms of fundraise, there are many things to consider, right? So, for example, like you rightly said, one is valuation. How do you arrive at the right sort of valuation so that you're not undervalued or overvalued? Overvaluation is also not good because you probably need to raise subsequent rounds, and if you aren't able to do enough of a multiplier over the previous round, then you probably you're not going to instill a lot of confidence in people. So it's about finding the right balance in terms of valuations. Is there an absolute science to it at very early stage? Definitely not. You're literally pulling numbers out of your backside for the best part. But how you could essentially go about deriving valuation to some extent is obviously looking at markets, but you can't do TAM or total addressable market based valuations. That's just silly. And, like, no investor worth their salt will ever believe those sorts of valuations, and you shouldn't because you look like a fool. But you could look at arrive at a proper and pragmatic sort of like serviceable market size, and start thinking about things like pricing and how much of the serviceable market you could obtain in year 1, year 5, year 10, things like that, and then start to come up with some numbers around how valuable you are today. There are obviously other factors as well, but this is how we did it. And it's also a function of markets in general. You could always have a premium if markets are very good and people have a lot of money to kind of put in. If markets are not so great like they're right now, you probably need to you'll have you'll be 0.8x of or 0.7x of the valuation that you arrive at to kind of be able to close this round. Definitely in Web3, things move much faster than in Web2. There's no doubt about that. Raising capital is much faster. But if there's anything that I want people to take away is from our experience is definitely look at what you do post fundraise and with that money. There are a lot of very young founders who are building stuff in Web3, first-time founders. They're all like early 20s, late teens, and things like that. These guys are starting up and they're raising tons and tons of capital. And there is my point to them is always be very, very thoughtful about ensuring like you have proper allocations of the monies you raise for different aspects like growing team, understanding what that is. If you don't understand that fully, find people who have the experience to help mentor you, coach you into understanding how you could allocate these funds across different things. Always ensure you have backup, because we've seen time and again, like we've started building in bear market and now we are still building in another bear market. And these cycles will keep happening. And when these cycles happen, you have to ensure that you have enough money to kind of uh, like make sure you're paying money to people and things like that. You shouldn't really just die, because what happens is 99% of startups that startup fail. Of the 1% that survive, I would say maybe 50, 70, 80% of them also fail, and they fail primarily because of mismanagement of money and because they run out of money and no one wants to invest in them, because either markets are bad or the fact that they ran out of money means that they don't know how to manage money, and hence people don't trust them with money. So this is super, super important to consider. Right now, there's a lot of capital still floating around, so which is why people may feel like it's okay and they can always raise new rounds, but you don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
So that is very, very important. And uh, as a founder, as the person responsible for ensuring the longevity and survival of this idea that has now transformed into a product, which is now transformed into a means of employment for so many people, you have fiduciary responsibilities to ensure that this works, and so you have to be thoughtful. And if this is not something you've done in the past, you should go out and get the necessary help. There are lots of people who will help you.
Fantastic. Amazing, Mayur. This has been very insightful. Thank you so much for your time as we wrap up today's show. So viewers, do pour in your questions, comments, and feedback. We would love to have you to recommend whom you would want us to feature in our next set of episodes. Like to thank Mayur once again for your time. I know it's quite early the day for you in Dubai. Thank you once again. Fantastic conversation, great insights. Wish you all the very best, and for you and your team with your beta launch, and as you go with your public launch in the next few quarters. Amazing conversation today. Thank you very much.
No, absolute pleasure. Great talking to you, Bimlesh, as usual. And fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So for viewers, we are extremely excited to bring more speakers to Web3Verse. So if you like what we do share, subscribe, and click on the bell icon, and we'll see you until the next episode. Take care.